I was sitting at Sunday dinner when my grandfather set down his fork, pulled out his laptop, and asked my mother a question that made her face go white. "Sophia, why are the disability payments still going to your account?" I didn't even know what disability payments he was talking about. I didn't know I'd been approved for anything. And what I learned in the next 10 minutes didn't just ruin dinner. It rewrote my entire childhood. My name is Sophia Reyes, and this is the story of how my family built their comfortable lives on money that was supposed to keep me alive. If you've ever been used by the people who were supposed to protect you, this one's for you. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel because what happened next changed everything. And tell me, what would you do if you were in my place? I grew up in a small house in Riverside, California, where the paint was always peeling and the air conditioner only worked in my parents' room. My older brother, Diego, and I shared a bathroom with a door that didn't lock, and our bedrooms were so close I could hear him breathing through the wall at night. But it wasn't the house that made my childhood hard. It was my body. When I was 7 years old, I was diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. The kind that doesn't just ache when it rains. The kind that makes your knees swell so badly you can't bend them. The kind that twists your fingers into shapes they're not supposed to go. Some mornings I couldn't hold a pencil. Some nights I cried so hard my mother had to give me cold compresses just so I could sleep. The doctors said it was chronic. Lifelong. That I'd need medication, physical therapy, regular checkups, and probably surgeries down the line. My parents nodded in the hospital room, their faces tight, but they didn't ask questions. They didn't write anything down. They just took me home. I learned early that my pain was an inconvenience. Not because anyone said it out loud, but because of the way my mother sighed when I asked for help opening a jar. The way my father looked past me when I said my legs hurt too much to walk to the car. The way Diego rolled his eyes and muttered, "Drama queen," under his breath when I couldn't carry my own backpack. By the time I was 10, I'd stopped asking for things. I taught myself to open bottles with my elbows. I wrapped my fingers in ace bandages before school so no one would see them shaking. I smiled through the pain because anything else made me a burden, and burdens didn't get love in my house. They got silent. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that my diagnosis had triggered something behind the scenes. My doctor had filed paperwork. Social workers had made calls. And somewhere in a government office, a decision had been made. Sophia Reyes qualified for disability benefits. Monthly payments to help cover medical expenses, therapy, medications, and the adaptations a child with a chronic illness needed to survive. The approval letter came when I was 8. I never saw it, and the checks started arriving every month. I never saw those either because my mother, Carmela Reyes, had made sure every dollar was deposited directly into an account I didn't know existed. And for the next 10 years, while I wore thrift store shoes that hurt my feet and skipped meals so we could save money, my family cashed checks that had my name on them. I didn't know any of this at Sunday dinner. I was 23, working as a junior software developer at a tech startup in San Jose, living in a cramped studio apartment I could barely afford. I taught myself to code through free online courses because college wasn't an option. My parents said we couldn't afford it, and I believed them. I always believed them. Sundays were the one day I came home. My mother made tamales, my father grilled carne asada, and for a few hours I could pretend we were the kind of family that cared about each other. Grandpa Mateo always came too. He was my father's father, a retired electrician with rough hands and a sharp mind. He didn't talk much, but when he did, people listened. That Sunday I was halfway through my second tamale when Grandpa reached into his bag and pulled out his laptop. It was old, the kind with stickers peeling off the cover, but he used it to manage his finances, check his emails, and apparently keep track of things no one else wanted him to see. He opened it slowly and the table went quiet. My mother's fork froze midair. My father stopped chewing and Diego glanced at me, confused, and I shrugged because I had no idea what was happening. Then Grandpa turned the screen toward my mother and asked, "Carmela, why are Sophia's disability payments still being deposited into your account?" The words didn't make sense at first. Disability payments. My disability payments. I looked at my mother, waiting for her to laugh, to explain and tell Grandpa he'd made a mistake. But she didn't laugh. Her face went pale, then red, then pale again. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. "What disability payments?" I asked. My voice sounded small, like it was coming from somewhere far away. Grandpa didn't look at me. He kept his eyes on my mother. The ones that were approved when Sophia was 8 years old. The ones that have been coming every month for the last 15 years. 15 years. I did the math in my head. I was 23. That meant. My stomach dropped. What are you talking about? My mother finally found her voice. Papa, this is a private family matter. Private. Grandpa's voice was calm, but there was steel underneath it. Sophia doesn't even know she's been receiving benefits. How is that private? I looked around the table. My father wouldn't meet my eyes, and Diego suddenly became very interested in his plate. And my mother, the woman who'd raised me, who told me 1,000 times that we had to be careful with money because we couldn't afford extras and I needed to be grateful for what I had, she looked at me like I was the problem. I want to see, I said quietly. Grandpa turned the laptop toward me. The screen showed a bank statement. My name was at the top. Beneficiary, Sophia Reyes. And below that, rows and rows of deposits. Monthly payments. $1,200 every month for 15 years. I felt the air leave my lungs. 15 years. 12 months a year. That was. I couldn't even calculate it. It was tens of thousands of dollars. Money that was supposed to help me and I'd never seen. Why? I whispered, looking at my mother. Why didn't you tell me? She straightened her back, her jaw tight. Because you were a child, Sophia. You didn't need to know about adult finances. I'm not a child anymore, I said, my voice shaking. I haven't been a child for a long time. And when you turned 18, Grandpa said, his eyes still on my mother, the payments should have been transferred to Sophia's control. But they weren't. You kept them. My father finally spoke. We used that money to take care of the family, Sophia. The house, the bills and food. It all costs money. The money was for her, Grandpa said, his voice hard now. For her medical expenses and her future. I thought about all the times I'd ration my pain medication because refills were too expensive. The physical therapy sessions I'd skipped because we couldn't afford the co-pays. The special shoes my doctor recommended that I never got. The heating pads, the braces, the ergonomic tools that might have made my life bearable. All of it out of reach because my family said we didn't have the money. But we did have the money. We had my money and they'd spent it on themselves. Diego got a car for his 16th birthday. My mother remodeled the kitchen. My father bought a new grill, a flat-screen TV and season tickets to the Dodgers. Why I wore donated clothes and walked to work in shoes that made my joints scream because I thought we were poor. I want access to the account, I said, my voice steadier now. My mother's face hardened. Sophia, don't be dramatic. Dramatic. The word came out louder than I intended. You stole from me for 15 years. You let me suffer while you spent money that was meant to keep me alive. And you're calling me dramatic. We didn't steal anything, my father said, his voice rising. We're your parents and we provided for you. That money helped the whole family. I wasn't part of the whole family, I said, and the truth of it hit me like a wave. I was just a source of income. The table went silent. My mother's eyes were wet, but I couldn't tell if she was sad or angry. My father looked away and Diego still wouldn't look at me at all. And Grandpa just sat there, his hand resting on the laptop, waiting. I'll help you, Grandpa said quietly. We'll go to the bank tomorrow and we'll get everything transferred to your name. And we'll find out exactly how much was paid out. My mother stood up so fast her chair scraped the floor. You're turning her against us. I didn't do anything, Grandpa said. You did this, Carmela, you and Javier. And now Sophia knows. I stood up too, my legs shaky and my hands trembling. I'm going home. Sophia, wait, my mother started, but I was already walking toward the door. I grabbed my jacket, my purse, and I didn't look back. Not at the table or at the family I thought I knew, not even at the life I'd believed was normal. As I stepped outside into the cold evening air, I heard Grandpa's voice behind me. I'll call you tomorrow, Mija. I nodded, even though I wasn't sure I could speak. And then I got in my car and drove away from the house where I'd grown up, the house that had been built in part on my pain. I didn't cry until I got home. And when I finally did, I didn't cry because I was sad. I cried because I was furious. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in my small bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through every memory I'd tried to bury and every time I'd been told no. Every time I'd been made to feel like I was asking for too much. Every time my pain had been treated like an exaggeration. I thought about the time I was 12 and my knees swelled so badly I couldn't walk. My mother told me to stop being dramatic and sent me to school anyway. I spent the day in the nurse's office icing my legs, crying quietly so no one would hear. When I got home she didn't ask how I was. She just sighed and said, "I hope you're happy. I had to leave work early to pick you up." I thought about the time I was 15 and needed a rheumatologist appointment. My father said we'd have to wait because money was tight. I waited 4 months and by the time I saw the doctor, the inflammation had gotten so bad I needed steroid injections. The doctor asked why we'd waited so long and my mother smiled and said, "We didn't realize it was serious." But she did realize she just didn't care because caring would have cost money. My money. And she'd already decided that money was better spent on Diego's basketball camp, on new furniture and on family vacations I was too sick to enjoy. The next morning Grandpa called me at 7 a.m. "I'm picking you up at 9, he said. "We're going to the bank." I got dressed slowly, my hands stiff from the cold and the stress. I chose clothes carefully but not too formal. I wanted to be taken seriously and I needed to be taken seriously because if the bank didn't help me I didn't know what I'd do. Grandpa arrived exactly at 9. He didn't ask if I was okay. He just handed me a folder. "I printed everything," he said. "Every statement I could access. Goes back 10 years. Before that the records are harder to get but we'll figure it out." I opened the folder. Page after page of deposits. $1,200 a month. Every single month. For 10 years that was $144,000. And that was just what Grandpa could access. If it went back 15 years like he'd said, the total was over $200,000. $200,000 is the money that could have paid for my college. Money that could have covered every medical bill I'd ever had. Money that could have given me a life where I wasn't constantly struggling, constantly in pain and constantly wondering if I'd ever be able to afford the care I needed. And my parents had taken it all. At the bank we sat across from a manager named Oliver Pemberton. He was young, maybe 30, with nervous hands and a polite smile that faltered when Grandpa laid out the folder in front of him. "This is a disability benefits account," Grandpa said. "The beneficiary is my granddaughter, Sophia Reyes. But for the last 15 years, the deposits have been going to an account controlled by her mother, Carmela Reyes." Oliver glanced at me then back at the folder. "And you're Sophia?" "Yes," I said, my voice steady. "I only found out about this account yesterday." His polite smile disappeared. "You didn't know you were receiving disability benefits?" "No." He frowned, clicking through his computer. "That's unusual. Typically, once a beneficiary turns 18, they're notified directly. Did you receive any correspondence from Social Security?" "No," I said. "I didn't receive anything." Oliver's frown deepened. "Let me pull up your account." He typed, clicked, typed again. Then his face went pale. "Oh. What?" Grandpa asked. "The mailing address on file," Oliver said slowly, "is your parents' address. But the email contact is your mother's personal email, not yours." My stomach twisted. "So every notification and every statement went to her," Oliver finished. "You were never copied. Can you change it?" I asked. "Can you transfer the account to me?" Oliver hesitated. "I can initiate the process, but because your mother is currently the account holder, she'll need to authorize the transfer." "She won't," I said flatly. "Then we'll need to go through Social Security," he said. "You'll have to file a claim, show proof of identity, and request that the beneficiary account be updated. It can take a few weeks." "Weeks?" My voice cracked. "I've already waited 15 years. Oliver looked genuinely sympathetic. "I understand. But there are legal processes. I'll flag this account for review, and I'll put a hold on any withdrawals until this is resolved. That's the best I can do right now." It wasn't enough. But it was something. As we left the bank, Grandpa put a hand on my shoulder. "We'll figure this out, Mija." "I don't understand," I said, my voice shaking. "How could she do this to me? How could she take money meant for me and just use it?" "People justify terrible things when they benefit from them," Grandpa said quietly. "Your mother convinced herself she was doing the right thing because the family needed it more than you did." "But I needed it," I whispered. "I needed it so badly." "I know." His voice was gentle. "And now we're going to make sure you get it back." Over the next week I filed paperwork with Social Security. I wrote statements and gathered medical records. I documented every expense my parents had made that should have been covered by my benefits. And the more I uncovered, the angrier I became. My mother called me 3 times. I didn't answer. She left voicemails, her voice tight and defensive. Sophia, we need to talk about this like adults. You're overreacting and we didn't do anything wrong. That money kept this family afloat. My father texted, you're being disrespectful. We're still your parents. Diego sent a single message. Why are you doing this? I didn't respond to any of them. Because the answer was simple. I was doing this because they'd stolen from me. They'd stolen my health, my opportunities, and my future. And I wasn't going to let them pretend it was okay. But the hardest part wasn't the paperwork or the phone calls. It was the doubt. Late at night, when my apartment was too quiet and my joints ached from stress, I'd wonder if I was wrong. If I was being ungrateful and tearing my family apart over money. Then I'd remember the heating pad I couldn't afford. The medication I rationed. The nights I cried myself to sleep because my body hurt so much I wanted to disappear. And I'd remember that my family had let me suffer while they spent money that was supposed to save me. That wasn't love. That was theft. And I wasn't going to forgive it. 2 weeks after the dinner, I got a call from Social Security. The benefits account had been reviewed. The payments had been redirected. And starting next month, the deposits would go directly to an account in my name. I sat on my couch, phone in hand, and for the first time in weeks I felt something loosen in my chest. Not relief, but something close to it. The money wouldn't undo the past. It wouldn't give me back the years I'd lost. But it was mine now and no one could take it from me again. Grandpa called me that night. I heard, he said. You did it, Mija. I did, I said, and my voice didn't shake this time. What are you going to do now? I looked around my tiny apartment. The place I'd fought so hard to keep, the place that was finally, truly mine. I'm going to live, I said. The way I should have been able to all along. And then I hung up and started planning. Because getting the money back was only the first step. Now came the part my family would never see coming. The first thing I did with my reclaimed benefits was something my family would have called wasteful. I booked an appointment with a rheumatologist at Stanford Medical Center. One of the best in the country. Not the clinic my parents had taken me to as a kid, where the doctor barely looked at me and prescribed the cheapest medications. A real specialist. Someone who treated my condition like it mattered. Dr. Langford was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and steady hands. He spent 2 hours with me. She examined my joints, reviewed my medical history, asked about my pain levels, my mobility, and my daily life. And when she was done, she looked at me and said, Sophia, you've been undertreated for years. I felt tears prick my eyes. I know. Your inflammation levels are significant, she continued. You should have been on biologic medications years ago. The damage to your joints could have been prevented. I couldn't afford it, I said quietly. She frowned. You have disability benefits, don't you? Those should cover. I didn't know about them, I interrupted. Not until 2 weeks ago. Her frown deepened. Who was managing your medical care? My parents. She didn't say anything for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Well, you're here now. Let's get you the treatment you deserve. I left that appointment with prescriptions for medications I'd only dreamed about. Medications that would reduce my inflammation, ease my pain, give me back some of the mobility I'd lost. They were expensive, thousands of dollars a month. But my benefits covered them. Every single one. For the first time in my life, I wasn't rationing pills and wasn't choosing between pain relief and rent. I wasn't suffering because someone else decided I didn't deserve care. And that's when I realized something. My parents hadn't just stolen money from me. They'd stolen my health. They'd let me deteriorate, let my condition worsen, let me believe I had to live with unbearable pain. All so they could spend my money on things that didn't matter. That realization changed everything. I started documenting not just the money but the neglect. I pulled my childhood medical records and compared them to the treatment guidelines for juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. I noted every missed appointment, every delayed referral, every time my parents had claimed we couldn't afford care that my benefits should have covered. I made spreadsheets, timelines, and detailed lists of expenditures my parents had made during years when I was being denied basic medical care. Diego's car, the kitchen remodel, and the vacation to Mexico. All of it paid for with money that should have been used to treat my chronic illness. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was methodical. Grandpa came over one evening and found me surrounded by papers. What are you doing, Mija? Building a case, I said. He sat down across from me. A case for what? I don't know yet, I admitted. But they can't get away with this. They can't just steal from me for 15 years and face no consequences. The money's back in your control now, he said gently. Isn't that enough? I looked at him. Grandpa, I spent my childhood in pain because they decided their comfort was more important than my health. I missed out on college because I thought we were poor. I've been struggling to survive while they've been living comfortably on money that was meant to save me. But getting the money back isn't enough. He studied me for a long moment. What do you want? I want them to feel what I felt, I said. I want them to understand what they took from me. Revenge. Accountability, I corrected. They need to face what they did. Grandpa leaned back in his chair. And how do you plan to do that? That was the question I'd been asking myself for days. I couldn't sue them. My lawyer had told me that family law around disability benefits was murky, and proving financial abuse would be difficult. I couldn't report them to Social Security without risking my own benefits. And going to the police felt like it would only hurt me more than it would hurt them. So I had to get creative. I started with my brother. Diego had always been the golden child, the one my parents fawned over, the one who got everything handed to him. He was 25 now, working as a sales rep for a mid-level tech company, still living at home because rent was expensive. But I knew the real reason. He didn't have to pay rent. My parents covered everything for him with my money. I called him one afternoon. He answered on the third ring, his voice wary. Sophia. Hey Diego, I said, keeping my tone light. Can we talk? About what? About Mom and Dad and the money. He sighed. Look, I don't want to get in the middle of this. You're already in the middle, I said. You've been benefiting from my disability payments for years. The car they bought you, the phone they pay for. Where do you think that money came from? I didn't know. Yes, you did, I interrupted. Maybe not at first. But you knew I was sick. You knew I needed help. And you didn't care as long as you got what you wanted. There was silence on the other end of the line. I'm not trying to punish you, I continued. But I need you to understand what happened. And I need you to help me. Help you how? I want a family meeting, I said. Just the 5 of us. No lawyers or drama. I want to sit down and talk about this. Mom's not going to agree to that. She will, I said. If you tell her I'm willing to drop the whole thing. Are you? No, I said honestly. But she doesn't need to know that. Diego was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I'll see what I can do. 3 days later I got a text from my mother. Sunday dinner. 5 p.m. I smiled. Perfect. I spent the next few days preparing. I printed out every document I'd collected, bank statements, medical records, treatment guidelines, expense reports. I organized them into folders, one for each family member. I rehearsed what I was going to say, how I was going to present the information, and how I was going to make them understand. But the most important part of my plan wasn't the documents. It was the audience. I called my Aunt Isabella. She was my mother's younger sister and she'd always been kind to me. She'd helped pay for some of my medications when I was younger, back when my parents claimed they couldn't afford it. She didn't know about the disability benefits. No one outside my immediate family did. Tia, I said when she answered. I need to ask you something. Of course, Mija. What is it? Did you know I've been receiving disability benefits since I was 8 years old? There was a long pause. What? Mom never told you? No, she said, her voice tight. Carmela never mentioned anything like that. She's been collecting them for 15 years, I said. And she never used them for my medical care. Dios mío, Isabella whispered. Sophia, are you sure? I have the bank statements, I said. I have everything. Does she know you know? Yes, I said. We're having a family meeting on Sunday. And I was hoping you could come. Why? Because I need a witness, I said. Someone who isn't part of this and someone who'll hold them accountable. Isabella didn't hesitate. I'll be there. I also invited Grandpa Mateo, of course. And I told Diego to make sure my father would be there. This wasn't going to be a quiet conversation. This was going to be a reckoning. Sunday came. I dressed carefully, not too formal but professional. I wanted to look like someone who couldn't be dismissed. I arrived at my parents' house at 4:45 p.m. 15 minutes early, and parked across the street. I watched as Isabella pulled up, then Grandpa Diego's car was already in the driveway. At exactly 5 p.m. I walked up to the front door and knocked. My mother answered. Her face was tight, her smile forced. "Sophia. Come in." The dining room table was set, but there was no food. Just chairs. My father sat at the head of the table, his arms crossed. Diego sat to his right, looking uncomfortable. Grandpa and Isabella sat on the other side, their expressions unreadable. I took the empty seat across from my mother and set my bag on the table. "Thank you for coming," I said, my voice calm. "I know this is uncomfortable. But we need to talk about what happened." "We've already explained," my mother started, but I held up a hand. "No," I said. "You've made excuses and you haven't explained anything. So I'm going to." I pulled out the first folder and slid it across the table. "This is a record of every disability payment I've received since I was 8 years old. Over $200,000. Money that was meant to cover my medical care, my therapy and my medications. Money I never saw." My mother's jaw tightened. "We used that money to support the family." "No," I said. "You used it to support yourselves." I pulled out the second folder. "This is a record of every major expense you made during the years I was being denied medical care. Diego's car. The kitchen remodel. The vacation and the new TV. All of it paid for while I was skipping doctor's appointments because you said we couldn't afford them." Diego's face went pale and my father looked away. I pulled out the third folder and handed it to Isabella. "And this is a record of every time Tia Isabella helped pay for my medications because you told her we were struggling financially." Isabella opened the folder, her eyes scanning the pages. Then she looked at my mother, her expression hard. "Carmela, what is this?" "It's not what it looks like," my mother said quickly. "It's exactly what it looks like," I said. "You lied. To me, to Tia Isabella and to everyone. You took money that was meant to keep me alive and you spent it on luxuries while I suffered." "We didn't," my father started. "Yes, you did," I interrupted. "And I have proof. Medical records showing untreated inflammation. Doctor's notes recommending treatments you claimed we couldn't afford. Receipts for medications I had to ration because you said money was tight." I looked at my mother, my voice steady. "You let me believe we were poor. You let me think I was a burden, and all along, you were living off my pain." The room was silent. Isabella stared at my mother, her face a mixture of shock and anger. Grandpa's expression was grim. Diego looked like he wanted to disappear. And my mother just sat there, her hands folded in her lap, refusing to meet my eyes. "I'm not asking for an apology," I said. "I don't think you're capable of giving one. But I want you to know that I'm done. I'm done pretending this family cared about me. I'm done making excuses for you. And I'm done letting you get away with what you did." "What do you want, Sophia?" my father asked, his voice tight. I smiled. "I want you to face the consequences." And then I told them exactly what I'd planned. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, my voice calm and clear. "You're going to pay me back." My mother laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Pay you back? Sophia, we don't have that kind of money." "Yes, you do," I said. "You have this house. You have 2 cars and you have savings. You're going to liquidate it. All of it." My father's face went red. "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious," I said. "Over the last 15 years, you took over $200,000 from me. I want it back with interest." "That's insane," my mother snapped. "We're your parents and we raised you. You neglected me," I cut in. "And you committed financial fraud. Those are crimes. I have documentation of every payment, every withdrawal, every expense you made with my money. I can take this to the authorities if I want to." "You wouldn't," Diego said, his voice shaking. I looked at him. "Try me." Isabella spoke for the first time. "Carmela, is this true? Did you really take Sophia's disability money?" My mother's face crumpled. "We needed it, I say. The house and the bills, we were drowning." "So you used your sick daughter's money to stay afloat?" Isabella's voice was cold. "While I was helping pay for her medication because you told me you couldn't afford it?" My mother didn't answer. "Here's the deal," I continued. "You're going to sell the house. Downsize. Get something smaller, something you can actually afford without stealing from me. You're going to sell one of the cars. And you're going to set up a payment plan to reimburse me for the money you took. We'll be homeless, my father protested. No, you won't, I said. You'll just have to live within your means, like I've been doing my entire life. And if we refuse? My mother asked. Then I go to Social Security, I said. I report the fraud. I filed a complaint with the state. And I let the legal system decide what happens to you. The room went silent. My mother and father exchanged a look, panicked and cornered. You have 1 week to decide, I said, standing up. After that, I'm moving forward with or without your cooperation. I picked up my bag and walked toward the door. Grandpa and Isabella followed. Diego stayed frozen in his seat and my parents didn't move. As I stepped outside, Isabella grabbed my arm. Sophia, are you sure about this? I've never been more sure of anything in my life, I said. She nodded slowly. Then I'm with you. Over the next week, my parents tried everything. My mother called me crying, begging me to reconsider. My father sent emails accusing me of being cruel and ungrateful. Diego showed up at my apartment, asking if there was any way to fix this without destroying the family. I didn't budge. On the 7th day, I got a call from my mother. Her voice was flat and defeated. We'll do it, she said. We'll sell the house. Good, I said. I'll have my lawyer draw up the paperwork. Sophia, please, she said, her voice breaking. You're our daughter. No, I said quietly. I was your income. There's a difference. And then I hung up. The house sold within 2 months. It was a seller's market and they got a decent price, enough to cover the bulk of what they owed me. They moved into a small condo on the outskirts of town, the kind of place I'd been living in for years while they enjoyed their spacious home paid for with my money. They sold my father's truck. They drained their savings. And every month they sent me a check, slowly repaying the money they'd stolen. It wasn't just about the money though. It was about watching them finally face the consequences of their actions. Watching them struggle the way I'd struggled and watching them lose the comfort they'd built on my pain. Diego stopped talking to me entirely. He moved out of my parents' condo and got his own place, something he should have done years ago. I didn't miss him. Isabella, on the other hand, became a constant presence in my life. She checked in on me, helped me navigate my new medical treatments, celebrated with me when I started feeling better. She told me she was proud of me, that I'd done the right thing. Grandpa Mateo visited me every Sunday. We didn't go to family dinners anymore. Instead, we went to brunch, just the two of us, and talked about everything except my parents. 6 months after the confrontation, I got a text from my mother. It was short. I'm sorry, Sophia. I stared at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to believe her. Part of me wanted to forgive her and rebuild something resembling a relationship. But I knew better. The apology wasn't for what she'd done. It was for getting caught. I deleted the text and blocked her number. Because here's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't matter how much someone apologizes if they only regret the consequences, not the action. My mother wasn't sorry she'd stolen from me. She was sorry I'd found out. And that wasn't enough. A year after everything fell apart, I moved into a new apartment. It was bigger, brighter, and closer to work. I furnished it with things I actually wanted. Comfortable furniture, good lighting, a real bed instead of the futon I'd been sleeping on for years. I kept up with my medical treatments. My inflammation levels dropped and my pain decreased. I started physical therapy and regained mobility I thought I'd lost forever. I even started hiking, something I never thought I'd be able to do. And every month when the disability payment hit my account, I didn't feel guilt or shame. I felt relieved. Because it was mine. It had always been mine and no one could take it from me again. One evening I was sitting on my balcony watching the sunset when my phone rang. It was an unknown number, but something made me answer. Hello. Sophia. The voice was hesitant, familiar. Diego. Yeah. He cleared his throat. I wanted to call. To say I'm sorry. I didn't respond. I didn't know, he continued. I mean, I knew about the money, but I didn't know. I didn't know it was supposed to be for your medical stuff. I didn't know you were suffering. You never asked, I said quietly. I know, he said. And I'm sorry. I really am. I believed him. But it didn't change anything. Thank you for calling, I said. But I don't think we have anything else to talk about. Sophia, please. I hung up. Because some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt and some families aren't worth saving. And some people don't deserve a second chance. I'd spent 15 years being the person my family needed me to be. The quiet one, the uncomplaining one, the one who didn't ask for too much. I'd shrunk myself down so they could be comfortable. But I wasn't that person anymore. I was Sophia Reyes. I was a software developer. I was a chronic illness patient who finally had access to the care I deserved. I was someone who'd stood up to the people who hurt me and won. And I was done apologizing for taking up space. 2 years after that Sunday dinner, I'm living a life I never thought I'd have. I got promoted at work. I'm leading my own team now, building software that helps people with disabilities access resources they need. Feels right. Like I'm turning my pain into something useful. I still see Grandpa Mateo every week. He's in his 80s now, moving slower, but his mind is sharp as ever. He tells me he's proud of me. That I did what he couldn't, stood up to his own daughter and made her face the truth. I don't talk to my parents. They finished paying me back 6 months ago, and that was the last contact we had. I heard from Isabella that they're struggling, financially and emotionally. Part of me feels bad. But a bigger part of me remembers the girl I was. The girl who rationed medication. The girl who believed she wasn't worth caring for. That girl deserved better. And so do I. My joints still hurt sometimes. Chronic illness doesn't disappear just because you get justice. But the difference now is that I have options. I have treatment. I have support, and I have a life that's mine. And I have something else, peace. Not the kind that comes from forgiveness, but the kind that comes from knowing you stood up for yourself. That you didn't let people break you. That you fought back and won. People ask me sometimes if I regret what I did. If I wish I'd handled things differently, kept the family together, found a way to forgive. And my answer is always the same. No. Because family isn't supposed to drain you. Love isn't supposed to hurt. And the people who are supposed to protect you shouldn't be the ones you need protection from. I don't regret choosing myself. I don't regret demanding accountability, and I don't regret walking away. Because for the first time in my life, I'm not just surviving. I'm living. If this story connects with you, if you've ever been used, dismissed, or told you were asking for too much, leave a comment. I read every single one. And if you want to hear more stories about people who chose themselves over toxic families, hit that subscribe button. Because you deserve to know you're not alone. And you deserve to know that standing up for yourself isn't selfish. It's survival.